Welcome to the Athlete Brand Advisor Podcast, featuring advice and interviews about athlete branding. Learn how marketing, public relations, and broadcasting can grow your brand. We also have special episodes to talk about recent news, events, and anything in the world of sports. The podcast is sponsored by Pliable, a versatile marketing, PR, and broadcasting company that identifies opportunities and creates tailored content for its clients. Now it's time to roll. Here's your host, Glynn.
Thanks, and welcome to the Athlete Brand Advisor Podcast. In this episode, we're talking about NIL and AI. That's right, we've got Calum Kuhn with us and Max Rusakov, and they are going to tell us all about their company and what they've been able to do with RevU. Calum is the co-founder and is the AI contract intelligence platform called RevU that is really mixing up NIL in the NIL space. So we're going to talk to him about his background as a solutions engineer at CoreLogics, also formerly Splunk. And then he brings a lot of knowledge around AI, observability, also data ops for organizations from SMBSs to Fortune 500s, and now is transforming really the contract management space with RevU. And then we have Max, of course, who I met at a great event, highly recommend, AthleteCon 2.0. I met him there. He's a recent SMU graduate with a background in finance and management. He co-founded RevU to give athletes a smarter way to understand and manage their NIL contracts. Max leads operations and partnerships focused on making NIL safer and more accessible. Calum and Max, welcome into the podcast.
Thanks,
Hello.
Craig. Great to be here with you.
Yeah, absolutely. This is exciting. Obviously, picking up on a conversation that I had with Max at AthleteCon, and I was there with a few athletes who were obviously trying to get NIL deals, and I was thinking to myself, wow, look at all these athletes in this room, and I wonder how many are really keeping all this stuff organized. And sure enough, you guys have the solution, which is really cool. So, Calum, why don't we start with you? Give me a little bit of the lay of the land on how you started the idea for RevU and what made you want to do this.
Yeah, so Max and I came together, just as we were finishing undergrad, wanting to work on a project. SMU is, had really been doing well in football, and it was a great environment to have access to athletes. So we started conducting user interviews. Initially, we were working with mostly tennis players, trying to find a better way to understand how coaches could impact their careers. And really through those user interviews, through that idea, we talked to them more and more about NIL. A couple of the athletes we talked to were complaining about not having, an agent, not having help from their school with reviewing contracts. And that's really where the idea for RevU came from.
Well, that sounds great, because I can totally understand that. And I talk with athletes all the time, and I don't think they're getting enough education at their institutions right now. And I think that, being able to use a platform like RevU would be able to be super helpful. So how about this, Max? Why don't you break it down and give us a lay of the land about what RevU actually does?
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to talk about this. Now about RevU. So as Carl said, we came up together and created RevU. We wanted to make sure that athletes are able to have a deeper insight in their contract. They're able to understand exactly what they're signing, exactly what they're doing. What RevU is it's an AI-powered platform that has multiple layers, and it really depends on who's using it. We realized as we were building this, there were a lot of horror stories about a lot of athletes who got burned by bad NIL deals, whether it was coming from their university, whether it was coming from an agent, whether it was coming from a brand. There were dangers for athletes in every single layer, and now you have these 18-year-olds signing legally binding agreements. There's been so many bad stories. We've talked about Savannah Schuer, who had to fly out all the way to New York to make a photo shoot, and then they ended up writing in something that if a check is bounced, they're basically not liable for that. There's a story of Javon Dexter, who signed a deal for $400,000 as a junior in college. Then he ended up going into the league, and once he only went to a league and signed with Bears, he found out that NIL deal he had a sign clause where it said that he has to pay 15% of his pre-tax income for the next 20 years, which is horrendous.
Wow.
And what we wanted to do is we wanted to give an opportunity for the athletes to review those deals. We figured out that the contract review for lawyer review is very expensive. An average price is anywhere from $400 to $700, and it can go for a few thousands even. Uh, and an average NIL deal is about $60, an average mean
Yeah.
disclosure value. So
Yeah.
at that point, does it even make sense to pick up a deal? And we realized that a lot of our friends who were athletes, lost an ability to pursue that entrepreneurship because of that reason. So we wanted to build a tool where you can easily ingest the contract, you can get the insights, you understand exactly what you're signing, you understand if there's conflicts of interest or any conflicts with compliance.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I think too, Calum, when you look at this product and what you guys are able to do, I think obviously, Max identified that it's got to be, cost effective to be doing NIL deals. And a lot of, I think, athletes think that, oh, okay, all the big name athletes are going to get big NIL deals, but there are opportunities out there for these athletes. And if they had a system in place or they had an agent who was reviewing these contracts, it would make their life a lot easier. And as we know, some athletes don't even know they can have NIL marketing agents at this point. So to be able to find a program like this that allows an athlete to put the contract in, evaluate it, review it. Talk to me, Calum, about some of the benefits that you think are like the top 3 things that really help athletes when they work with RevU.
Yeah. The number one thing is I'd say we're not here to replace lawyers. As you mentioned, especially at the higher end of the market, there's fantastic agents and attorneys who are helping athletes pursue massive deals with, national enterprises. What we're trying to do is, as many industries have done, take the small crumbs, the things that we can't always put a person on, and using AI or process automation to have eyes on those, to have them more easily be tracked from an operations perspective, and from the athlete side, actually have access to legal knowledge or legal insights. So we've seen, I'll just use this quick analogy, in the security space, emails have always been a huge problem. Spam emails, you get thousands and thousands of them every day. You can't always have a security analyst read every single one. So large organizations have deployed automation tools to be able to read them, block them, and deal with them, because it's an issue of scale. It's expensive to have a person deal with a really high volume, high scale problem. And that's where automation tool like RevU comes to play. It makes that knowledge affordable and scalable and accessible to everybody in the NIL market.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I like also too what you said about the fact that this is accessible, because I think that a lot of athletes, again, I think one of the barriers to entry is that they don't think that this is for them. They don't think they can do NIL, maybe in some cases because they don't play a revenue generating sport. And sometimes they will pass up opportunities. And I also think too, quite honestly, the schools don't look at athletes in non-revenue generating sports the same way as they look at it, the ones in the revenue generating. And so to have a tool like this is really helpful. Max, go back to you. How long did it take for this idea to kind of come to fruition?
So we started working on this, about 2 years ago was our original idea. We did our pivot within a few months. And then the first stage was basically Kyle building up the back end of the code, prompting everything. That probably took us, Kyle, anywhere from 4 to 6 months.
Yeah.
And then we were able to really bring on a team that was able to kind of help us build everything around it and tie it up and make it look nice and sweet.
Yeah, that sounds good, because it does. Let's talk about how you're marketing this product to the athletes. Obviously, being at AthleteCon is a great way. That face-to-face stuff is awesome. So glad we get to do that again now. But what are you guys doing to try and get this product to market?
Yeah, I think there's a couple different things that we're doing. I mean, at an individual level, attending the conferences, meeting athletes where they are has been huge for us. And Max is really active in the athlete communities with that. Also, partnerships have been huge for us. There's a ton of great brands in the space and great individual entrepreneurs who are helping uplift athletes, whether it's through helping them make content have access to other services, even people, in the legal or agent space. And so we really lean on our partners to match us with athletes. We've signed some NIL deals, match us with athletes who understand our product thesis and, really believe in our mission, as well as platforms that, are marketing to athletes more directly, have some great partnerships on that side.
What does an NIL deal look like? Let's say we've got an athlete out there right now that's listening to this podcast. They're wondering about the use of this product, how they could use it. They're probably itching and scratching to maybe say, I would love to see how this works. What are some of the NIL deals that you've done, or what are some ways you guys are engaging athletes to be able to promote your brand?
Yeah, Max, I'll toss this to you after because we have some really cool plans coming up on that side. But the first thing, from my perspective that we look for is, again, that they understand our mission. And with that, we're always looking for product feedback. So we onboarded our entire cohort of current athletes and agents on for free. We've since, created an additional platform, and we're starting to look for some larger partnerships. But at the athlete level, we want to make sure that, again, this is an accessible tool. So we're always looking for individual athletes will give you free access. We can get feedback. And then with a handful of those have escalated to posting content as well. We ran a recent workshop, a digital workshop with one of the athletes we work with. So across the board, lots of different types of engagements we're open to.
That's awesome. And Max, I know you have some ideas too. We were talking with Katie Shanahan, obviously one of the athletes I was with at AthleteCon, about, when she starts getting up over 18 NIL deals, like looking at contracts and making sure they're not competing or conflicting with another contract. I mean, that's so helpful to hear. Those are kind of the athletes that really obviously benefit from this the most.
Exactly. So the athletes who are pursuing the most deals, we realized that there are athletes like Livy Dunn and like Bronny and Arch Manning who are signing multi-million-dollar deals. And we do believe strongly that when you're signing deals of that quantity, your best bet is to have a full legal team with you. Although when you're signing a deal that gives you a few $100s or some free drinks or some free hoodies, I think we're a great tool as far as being able to show you exactly what you're signing, raise any questions that needs to be raised, and then you're able to, if help is needed, you're able to go and help, seek for more help. And the big thing with us as far as bringing people is what Kyle said earlier. We're looking for people who really believe in what we're building. I mean, AI is so new, NIL is so new. Me and Kyle are two young guys in such a new space trying to build a technical product. So I think for us, the very important thing for over the last few months was finding people who truly believe in a product, who believe that it can go the right direction, and who are aligned with us and want to build alongside with us.
Well, and I think too, the timing is so, perfect for both of you, because obviously now with the NCAA versus house settlement, what this means for schools, revenue sharing, you've got the future of NIL is evolving. And there's going to be some contracts that people won't have seen before, quite honestly. And I think that this really opens up a door for you guys to have your product identify these things, especially as it gets into revenue sharing, because your AI, I imagine, is probably going to be picking up on some trends or some things that will flag athletes to take a closer look, or get, as you said, in many cases, they may need to seek, some higher counsel. But Calum, that's probably, I bet you're thinking that same way, as NIL is far from being set in stone in many different cases.
Yeah, no, our platform was really designed around that idea that with software, we can match these constantly changing sets of regulation. We can add new features to support new market dynamics. And the house settlement was such a massive shift in the market for us. So we were anticipating it and had been planning some new features and really a lot of go-to-market efforts around that settlement date. And so we're really excited. So we launched mostly supporting, individual traditional endorsement deals. And with this new version that we'll be previewing soon, our beta is already full for it. We're launching support for rev share deals and stuff that athletes would want to sign in the transfer portal or during recruiting.
Yeah, that's such a smart idea, because I think that's where a lot of athletes and families, quite honestly, are getting tripped up in the space. So that makes a lot of sense. Let's talk, Max, a little bit. You've been out there talking with athletes, and I'm sure you've heard some horror stories, like you kind of mentioned already. But this is just such an important tool, I think, for athletes to be able to lean on. And I also think when it comes to AI, this is evolving so fast, not only just the NIL side, but the AI side. Talk to me about some of the technology that gets you excited.
Oh, we have so much exciting stuff coming out, and I'm gonna pass it over to Kyle in a minute because he's the one behind building all of that and behind the team that's building all of it. But we've built some very exciting stuff. We're just recently, actually, Kyle released a private version of our term sheet generator. So, from talking to a lot of universities, we figured out that a lot of the conversations actually are kept on an email thread, and by the time the contract hits the table, nobody really knows what deliverables should be, and then there's a lot of issues. There's also a huge issue with athletes not necessarily reading those contracts and just signing them.
Yeah.
So developed
yeah, I can imagine.
no, it's awful.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we developed a very simple tool, which is basically like your Gmail extension, where you can go on that email thread and we'll be able to generate term sheet, everything that's been going on. It's going to highlight it, bring it out, make sure, tell you what they're giving you, what are you giving the brand, what work and deliverables you have to do. Another big thing that we also focused on recently, from talking to universities and collectives and especially agents, we figured out that a lot of athletes get confused with their due deliverables. That's been a pretty big issue. They forget that they need to post, they don't show up somewhere on time. So something we've recently been emphasizing as well is creating a mechanism to send them a reminders whenever they have anything. And that way they're able to also protect their deals better from their side and making sure that they do what they're supposed to do.
Right. And Calum, let's go back to you because I know you're on
Yeah.
the tech side of that. Walk me through, again, the use of this AI. I think that email thing is fantastic. Walk me through the technology, and then we'll try and get into a little bit of pricing or how you guys plan to charge for these services.
Yeah. So the technology, we're built on a pretty, I'll call it a moving framework. So we can, as new models come out, as new capabilities come out in the market, it's very easy for us to adapt our current capabilities to whatever new advancements come out. And we've been leaning on that sort of structure, that architecture from day one. Is, there are tons of advancements coming from the AI space. We're not trying to be a AI company or a model first company. We're trying to be an NIL company. And so we lean on those companies, those models that come out to support our business. The core technology that we've really developed is a way to take a contract, every task associated with it, pursuing deliverables, redlining and negotiation, understanding where your clauses sit relative to people in your own sport, people that your agents also representing. At every layer, we have a piece of information that helps an athlete, a operations person at a university or a service provider make a better decision on if they should sign that contract or not, if they should change it or not. And then also, as Max mentioned, into the future, making sure that they are not, violating the terms of that contract with a, conflict of interest or exclusivity issue, and that they're pursuing and completing all the deliverables in a reliable manner. I'll emphasize that last one. It wasn't something that we were, very focused on initially, but there are multiple schools that have hired individual operational personnel to help athletes pursue deliverables and make sure that they're doing those things. So it's something that, whenever we see somebody hired for it, we'd love to be able to support that individual with, an accompanying tool or an into our platform.
Well, yeah. And then I think too, as an agent for these athletes, as their NIL marketing agent, this is very appealing, especially when, someone like myself, Pliable, is representing over 35 athletes across the country right now. That's a lot of contracts that are in, folders and organized, but, to have them all be cross-referenced and, highlight any issues that, could come up. I certainly look at them. But I'm not an attorney either, and I do have, counsel that I can rely on to when I do have that. But you're right, it gets expensive. I think we identified that out of the gate. So talk to me about how the pricing is going to work for, everything from schools to agents to athletes.
Yeah, so we started out and we're for the moment, continuing this path, looking at $15 for a contract, and that is from the review process, tracking it throughout its entire lifetime. What we're hoping and the direction that we're going is obviously, as we can do this at a larger and larger scale, the cost will fall pretty precipitously. So, a partnership with a university or any group of hundreds of athletes, we can get a pretty decent price reduction for groups of that size. And we're already starting to engage some partnerships in that capacity. So we're looking to onboard about 75 agents in the coming month or so. And that is, just the beginning of the scale we're looking at.
Yeah, that's great. How about athletes that you're working with or that you guys want to, sign to your NIL opportunities?
Max, do you want to answer this one?
Yeah. I mean, I think the athletes we work with right now, we view them as early adopters. We really appreciate every single one of them who's been willing to work with us when, all we had was an idea. So I think me and Kyle had a lot of conversations about keeping everybody we have right now for free for as long as they're in universities, just as a little thank you gesture from us. As far as bringing new athletes, I think we want to create a service so good that our service advertises itself. I think we're finally starting to get some traction. We're finally starting to get some recognition and get a little bit bigger. So we're just going to thrive to keep building the best product we can build until the athletes just won't be able to avoid it. And it'll just be something that they need in there every day.
Yeah. Well, something they need in there every day is Instagram. You guys are on Instagram. Talk to me about your social media. Where can people find you guys, as well as obviously your website?
Yeah, we are RevU.nil. That's REVU.nil on Instagram. You can find our website, RevU.deals, if you want to review any of your deals with us. And you can look us up on LinkedIn at RevU, REVU. We post quite a bit about NIL. We just launched an NIL events calendar as well. So we're active in the space, trying to help, everybody involved in it outside of just our product. So follow us on all the platforms. You'll be sure to catch, calendar announcements and other stuff that we'll be launching very soon.
I think it's fantastic what you guys are doing, and I can't wait to continue our partnership and see where NIL goes next. But I know two guys that'll be keeping up with it, and it's the both of you. So it's really good to be able to have you guys on today. And thank you very much, obviously, for your time, guys. And I'm looking forward to, as I said, bringing more athletes your way. You do a great job.
Thanks, Greg. Great to chat with you.
Thank you very much, Greg. Appreciate your time.
All right. That is our podcast episode for today here on the Athlete Brand Advisor Podcast. We'll continue with more. Keep up with the latest episodes at pliablemarketing.com. I'm Greg Glynn. Glad you could tune in. Have a great day, everybody.
Thanks for listening to the Athlete Brand Advisor Podcast. Be sure to check out the show notes from today's episode and catch up on recent episodes at pliablemarketing.com. We also encourage you to share topics and guest ideas by emailing our production staff at pliablemarketing@gmail.com. We love hearing from our loyal listeners and athletes who want to grow their brand. So jump in and be part of the podcast, because that's how we roll.